Hey, this morning I'd like to start with a koan, which is, it turns out it's actually my favorite koan of any of the koans. So, and I know I've talked on it before, but it's been a while, probably a number of years. So this one is called A Buffalo Passes Through a Window. It's kind of a short one. Goso said, to give an example, it's like a buffalo passing through a window. Its head, horns, and forelegs have all passed through. Why is it that its tail cannot? So I did a little research on this Master Goso, which I'd actually never done before, and most of the all of the names in the Mumonkan, since this was translated or transliterated in some cases into Japanese, are Japanese names, but every one of them was a Chinese master, not a Japanese master. Even Mumon, who put this book together, was Chinese, not Japanese. And this Master Goso, his name in Chinese is something like Wutsu. And there's a lot of different ways that they spell the Chinese names and pronounce them. There's usually like three different kinds of spellings because they're trying to approximate the way Chinese sounds. It's very difficult in English. And obviously it was even more difficult in Japanese because they somehow changed Wutsu to Goso. So anyway, this Master Wutsu was born around 1124 AD. He lived until about 80 years old. So he was in the Song dynasty, not the Tang dynasty, which was some of the earlier masters were, which is considered kind of the golden age of Zen, was a little earlier. And he became ordained at age 35, which was kind of old for most of the teachers that you read about in these koans. Most of these guys, they ended up becoming monks in their teens or early 20s. So he was a little older when he got into it fully. And what was kind of interesting, I thought, in looking at his history, is he really was intent on becoming very, very clear. And so he would study with a teacher, and then when he felt that teacher couldn't take him to kind of the next step that he felt he needed to go, then he would go to another teacher, and so on. I think he ended up with about 4 or 5 different teachers in that way. And that wasn't too uncommon at that time in China. There were a fair number of teachers around, and evidently Wutsu was very intent upon really awakening in a more complete way. There are a few koans that feature Wutsu. I'm going to use his Japanese name, Goso. But this is, as I said, my favorite. So, and in researching this, I also found out, which I never knew before, that this story of the buffalo passing through the window is based on an older story, which comes from ancient Indian Buddhism. It's mentioned in one of the sutras, which is an elephant passing through the window. But it's the same thing. The elephant is trying to pass through the window, and everything goes through except the tail. And it's kind of interesting because that story came from a particular king that had given the Buddha, during the Buddha's time, given him and his disciples this large piece of land. You know, that's kind of what happened when he became well known, is he would travel around through India, and different people would give the Sangha places to hang out. And then he would settle there and teach for a while. And this king evidently had 10 dreams. And one of the dreams that he had was this dream of an elephant that had passed through a window, or a door or something, but the tail couldn't go through. And so originally he went to the Buddha to get his dream interpreted, and the Buddha interpreted the dream. I won't get into that because it's too long of a digression, but all I can say is that I wouldn't have translated that dream the way the Buddha did. Not saying he was wrong, but I don't know if there's right or wrong with dreams. So that's the story of the elephant passing through the window, which eventually became buffalo passing through the window. And of course, the buffaloes they were talking about here were like water buffaloes, not usually when we think of buffalo in America, we think of bison, but they didn't have bison there. So to give an example, it's like a buffalo passing through a window. Its head, horns, and four legs have all passed through. Why is it the tail cannot? So I was reflecting on this koan because I have worked with it for probably 40 years, maybe 45 years at different times, and I always feel I gain a richer understanding of it when I work with it myself, and also a lot of students have worked with this koan over the years, dozens, and each time they work with it and I'm working with them, I find that I learn more from that relationship also. So logically, of course, this is a total conundrum, you know. Logically, we know that if something large can go through something, that the tail attached to the end of it should go whoop and go right through. But he's saying it cannot. So this is a really great koan to sit with, I feel, because in order to work with it, you have to understand what the buffalo is and then what the tail is. And since in koans, everything is about us, it's about me when I'm working with it, it's about us, and it's about now. It's never about something else, and it's never about some other time, because there isn't any other time. There is no past and no future. So the only thing there ever is now, and the only being that these koans are speaking about is the person working with it. We have to become one with it in order to really understand what the implication of it is. So why is it that tail cannot go through? Have you ever had that feeling before? What is not quite complete? What doesn't feel quite right? What do you still have doubt about? Whatever we still have doubt about, whatever doesn't feel complete, that's what robs us of the experience of wholeness or of completeness. So as I was sitting this morning with this koan, I was, for myself, sitting with what didn't feel complete. And I think all of you know I've been doing this a long time, but it doesn't matter. There's always something that feels incomplete. There's always something that doesn't feel quite right. There's always something that I don't like someone was weed whacking next door for a minute. We have the windows open because it's a little cooler this morning. Get some fresh air in here for a change. And for a minute, for just a moment, it irritated me. And then I realized, oh, there's the tail. Okay, it's not complete. It hasn't passed through. Something's wrong. The fight or flight syndrome kicks in, right? And I start resisting it or getting angry about it. But the moment I saw that, and especially because I was working with this koan this morning, I was able to drop it and feel, oh, it's still complete. With that sound, it's still complete. It's a complete sound, and it's a complete experience of meditation with the sound or without the sound. Some of you may remember a few months ago, I did a talk where I posed the question, what is it that's aware? And we kind of sat with that. And that's been my practice for quite some time now, for the most part, is what is aware. And I find that this koan, actually, working with this tail, is very similar to what is aware, because when I'm working with what is aware, whenever something comes up that's obstructive, if I can ask myself at that moment that I'm feeling obstructed, what is aware, then the obstruction ceases to become obstructive. Because it's not about anything in particular, it's about what is aware of what is being perceived. What is aware, not who, because that's a different question. That assumes there's a person. But we could say who is aware. I just don't think it's quite as accurate. we all want to completely pass through. We all want to feel at ease. We want to feel awakened. We want to be clear. We want things to be the way we want them to be, which we assume that if we have things the way we want them to be, that it means we'll be at peace. Doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Maybe for a brief moment in time, when you get what you want, you'll be at peace. And then I guarantee you some other obstruction will arise. So how do we work with this? How do we work with this? Master Shivayama in the commentary on this koan says you have to grab onto that tail and make it your own, you know. The flies are buzzing around in the tail, you know, just like this. Make it your own. So it's so important to be able to observe the way we're never satisfied. You know, the definition of dukkha, a Sanskrit word essentially that's translated into English as suffering, it's not entirely accurate, I don't think, but it's close, is either not getting what we want or getting what we don't want. And so if we look carefully, there's the sound we don't want, there's the thing in our life we don't want, there's our situation we don't want, there's the person that's irritating, there's the physical pain going on in our body. Our back, our neck, our knees, in my case, my foot. I don't have any knee pain or back pain, but I have foot pain. So there's always something. So you can either sit with it, and then the tail passes through if we are able to become one with it and stop resisting whatever's in the way. But if we can't, then it becomes this impossible conundrum. It can't be done with logic. It has to be done with merging. It has to be done with wholeness. Rumon's commentary says, if you can penetrate to the point of this koan, open your Zen eye to it, and give a turning word to it, you will then be able to repay the 4 obligations above and help the 3 existences below. If you still cannot do it, work with the tail single-heartedly until you can grasp it as your own. I was talking about before. Work single-heartedly with it, meaning really put yourself into it. If we're doubting, if we feel blocked, if we feel there's an obstacle there, we have to work with what the obstacle is. It doesn't help to just shift away from it. That's what we call bypassing. And it works temporarily, but the obstacle doesn't go away. Whatever we're working with, we need to directly engage it rather than just shoving it down deeper, suppressing it, disowning it. So when we can grasp the obstacle as ourself, then it becomes something very different. Because what happens is when we're encountering something that's obstructive, in at least a subtle way, if not an overt way, it feels like it's something other than us, right? It's that other person, it's that other sound, it's that whatever. There's always something, and there's always something. But if we can see that our very reaction to whatever we think it is that's obstructing is what's causing the suffering, not the thing itself, then it totally changes the equation. It totally changes the nature of how our meditation is and how our life is. So Mumon does a poem on each of these koans, and this is a very nice poem. I like it. If it passes through, it falls into a ditch. If it turns back, it is destroyed. This tiny tail, how extremely marvelous. If it passes through, it falls into a ditch. If it turns back, it's destroyed. So what is he saying here? He's approaching it from a dualistic, he's showing us the dualistic way of viewing the obstruction, right? In other words, if you push it through, it falls into a ditch and it's useless. If it turns back, it's destroyed, because you can't turn back. You can't go backwards, right? So what he's posing a conundrum here based on the notion of the tail not passing through, saying that don't look at it as passing through or turning back. Don't look at it as a thing that can move in that way. Look at it as a part of oneself. Again, when something becomes a part of ourself, then we can work with it effectively. If it's something that's not a part of ourself, then it's hit or miss. Like another person, for instance. Another person, we can't control what anyone else is going to do at any time. So if we try to do that, then it becomes an obstacle. If we try to control what cannot be controlled, which is almost everything, then it turns out to be a huge obstacle. And then he says, this tiny tail, how extremely marvelous. So instead of it being a problem, instead of the tail being a problem, if we can, again, see it as part of the whole, part of the awakened mind, then it's a wonderful thing. What we think is an obstacle is actually essential. Our obstacles are essential. It's kind of like when you go to the gym, right? If you want to strengthen your muscles, you can't do it by working below your threshold too far, because you won't be stressing the muscles enough to build them. You have to stress a muscle in order for it to grow, or even remain the same as you get older, as most of us find out. So the obstruction of the work, with that muscle is what causes it to maintain health and to grow. And it's that way with every obstruction we encounter. And the obstructions that we want to get rid of so much are the exact things we need. And there's so many times when a person or a thing is obstructive, or apparently obstructive, and if we can see that person or thing as exactly what we need to go deeper, guess what? It ceases to have that kind of obstructive power over us anymore. Doesn't mean we change the person, because you can't do that. Might even not change the dynamic between the two of us, but it will change whether I'm suffering or not. And a lot of times, just by dropping my own suffering and my own reactivity, it does change the relationship, but it doesn't happen through the ego forcing it. It happens naturally because the person is able perhaps to relax when they don't sense a resistant and or angry person on the other side of things. And if it's a person that enjoys doing that, causing suffering to others, which there are people who do, there are people who want to irritate or want to annoy or want to create fear or anger. If you don't evidence what they want, the fear or anger, for instance, then sometimes they don't know what to do, because they're used to getting what they want, which is the fear and anger, because most people react in that way. So what is your particular tale? What tale won't pass through today? That's what you have to work with. It's probably different than anyone else's in the room here or online. It's probably different than mine. We all have something. The wonderful thing about the process of Zen and meditation, is it enables us, it gives us tools to work with that and to see how we're attached to, what are we attached to? Ways of viewing the situation. It's all about view and perspective. It's never about anything material, actually. It's all about perspective entirely. So I'll open it up now in case anyone has any questions or comments.